Hey, hello everybody, it's Jesus here, also known as the Son of God, and today I'm going to prove to my father that I can beat Dark Souls 3 using only... Alright, a miracle only run of Dark Souls 3? How original. But honestly, it is for me. I've never actually used only miracles specifically in Dark Souls 3 because, well, it isn't the most viable way to approach the game since most of the good offensive spells are mid to late game, and to acquire the first miracle that actually does damage, one will have to defeat Vord first. So it seemed like a fun challenge to try. Since in this game, Cleric doesn't start with any offensive miracles, it is actually impossible to beat the game without the use of mods because of the unskippable tutorial boss. And since I'm just a console peasant, the run will actually have to start after Iudex Gundyr is defeated. As usual guys, if you enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing to the channel. We just reached 6,000 subscribers, meaning that we're getting closer and closer to the 10,000 mark, and it would mean a lot to me if you could join in for the ride. And with all that finally out of the way, it's finally time for Jesus to come back and kick some ass. Since miracles require a heavy investment of levels in faith, I thought it would be a good idea to choose the Sovereignless Soul as my starting gift for some early extra souls. Jesus was looking finer than a kebab after smoking green blossom all night with the boys. After Gundyr deleted himself by tripping on my mace, I arrived to the shrine and used the souls I got as my burial gift and leveled attunement and faith. I performed my first miracle by first trying the tree skip, so I could get the Estus shard early and the covetous silver serpent ring. Here is a good question. If the first miracle is after Vord, which is not an optional boss, how will I be able to kill them? Well, my friend, this is how to do it. I traveled to High Wall of Lothric and got to work by picking every consumable soul on my way to the next bonfire. I quickly returned to the shrine to buy the leather shield. I then talked to Emma and took the small Lothric banner from her, activated Vord's boss fight, and then boned the F out of there back to the bonfire. Just like it says in the Bible. I sneaked past the Lothric knight, grabbed the attention of this fine gentleman over here to lure him down the stairs. I parried the poor bastard while staying as close to the corner as possible to enter Death Camp, and I ran past everything, skipping Vord's boss fight entirely. I raised the banner and got transported by flying demons to my next destination. That's exactly how I remember it from the Bible, by the way. I accepted Yol's services, moved on to pick up the Estus shard, arrived at the World of Sacrifices and picked up Morn's ring and the Braille Divine Tome. I then bought a dagger from the Shrine Maiden, arrived in Farron Keep, and picked up the Estus shard as well as the Tit shards and the Dream Chaser's ashes. Finally got my hands on our first offensive spell, the Lightning Spear. Damage isn't all that great, but we can work on that. Vord should be easy enough. Well, joke's on you, cause dying and resurrecting is actually lore accurate. The damage from range sucked donkey balls, and even though at melee range it deals extra damage, the casting speed was atrociously slow, so I would have to be careful of when to cast. Anyways, staying close to his giant ass proved to be the successful strategy as usual. I used all the souls I gained on my journey to free the world from sin and pumped some levels into faith, which is the stat that gets me jacked. I then killed Sub-Zero for his Irithyll Straightsword, made peace with my giant friend, and went on to fight a demon with Onion Boy. I picked up the Flynn's ring and I returned home, just to start deleting myself in order to gain some free levels from Yhorm. One of the strongest miracles in the game is found in the smoldering lake behind the Abyss Watchers, so I needed an efficient way to get past them. And since I was unable to perform this glitch for my Cheese All Bosses video, I thought it was fitting to show you how it's done. So I aligned myself with the door, did 3 R1s and made sure I was standing over the stairs. Then, I performed a heavy strong attack to get the cutscene to play. I quit out as soon as I gained back control, and once I was back in, I was inside the arena, free to move wherever I wanted with the boss completely frozen. I fried the Abyss Watchers like chicken at a KFC, used the souls to level up some more, and I then ventured through the catacombs of Carthus in order to arrive to the smoldering lake, and took a nice comfortable seat while the ballista took care of the giant worm from Dune. Which luckily for us drops the lightning stake miracle, which has you slamming lightning into the ground, which I gotta say is pretty cool. I decided to test this baby out on the Crystal Sage, and turns out it was pretty overpowered. Coming right after, High Lord Wolnir. I just had a little bit of a problem at hitting his third arm, but this fight was pretty straightforward as you can imagine. Beating the big skeleton man opened up the doors to heaven, but before I could actually go to it, I had to level up my faith to 40. Then I arrived at the cleansing chapel, and from here I picked up the Estus shard and found Lloyd's sword ring. And I was right on time to fight the hardest boss in the game. I'm not kidding, guys. Deacons were actually hard this time. The first phase was fine, but as soon as Pope Francis showed up, the cracks began to break. Lightning Stake was my only option, as trying to hit the correct target between the pile of unidentified moving blob of potential child predators was not effective at all. The casting speed from the Lightning Stake was kind of ass for this fight. In this particular instance, we Italians like to say two simple words: Porco Dio. This went on for a while until finally I had some good RNG. Then I found out that a shield will help a whole lot, and with some favorable RNG, the Deacons went down. Irithyll of the Boreal Valley was breathtaking as always, especially on my 10-year-old 12 inches TV screen. I arrived at the Church of Yorshka, went out on your average Tinder date, and for my bravery, I was rewarded with one of the best miracles in the game. You will soon find out why this spell is so good. I unlocked the shortcut to Pontiff, but before fighting the big baddie himself, I quickly went and picked up the Sun Ring and went to free Irina.
Who is there? Please, whoever you are, touch me. So please, and touch me. Ah, yes, there you are. So close, indeed. Praise the merciful gods above. Your touch has freed me from the darkness.
And it was game on. The fight with Pontiff made me realize that I absolutely needed to level up attunement as I was constantly running out of mana. Once arrived in Nan Orlando, I went on to choose Aldrich because he devours gods and that's like Jesus' family, so I think he deserved it. Then I killed the Cursed Rotted Greatwood to get the Transposing kill, which I gave to Ludleth in order to transpose the soul of Aldrich and get the Life Hunt Scythe miracle. I used the rest of the souls to level up attunement and vigor, and then I fried Yorshka for one of the best chimes in the game. It was time to return to Lothric and have a dance-off. I tried different strategies with Dancer. First with Sight, which is fast and the damage decent, also gaining back health was pretty good. I also tried Dohori's whatever. A bit slow but still really useful for a more ranged approach. In the end, I settled for the Lightning Stake for phase 1 since Dancer is pretty passive for the most part, giving me plenty of opportunities to attack. And I then switched to Dohori's Nyawing to finish her off. The bleed procced with only 2 casts, so it wasn't long before the Dancer stopped dancing for good. Next stop was the Consumed King's Garden, where I got all the goodies like the Estus shard as well as the Titanite chunks laying around. Then I lit the bonfire in Lothric Castle to pick up the rest of the chunks in the area. I returned to Firelink to spend my souls on some leveling up, reinforce my Estus. I then joined the DLC and I had a wonderful time parkouring through the branches. And I found the Titanite slab, invited Sir Wilhelm to go and meet God, moved the contraption that would open Sister Fried's boss fight, had a good look at her feet just like Miyazaki intended, and I then settled on the fact that I was not ready to fight her right now.
Return from whence thou camest.
At this point, I decided to continue on with the base game, and I arrived in Irithyll Dungeon. Picked up the cell key from this chest, and I rapidly made my way to the profane capital to get the jailer's keyring, as well as getting my hands on the Wrath of the God spell. I freed Carla from the bondage king house she was working in as a sex slave. I took a detour to the Cathedral of the Deep to kill this mimic for the Deep Brill Divine Tome, which I gave to sexy witch Carla and bought Deep Protection. Before fighting Yhorm, I traveled to Smoldering Lake to have a chat with the old Demon King. The combo wasn't all that interesting and not very long if I have to be honest. I killed the stray demon in Farron as well, and I used all the souls I acquired to level up my faith. I killed Osiris using Dori's Gnawing, which is absolutely broken, and you'll see why in a little while. I picked up the Path of the Dragon Jester, and I gave the same treatment to Champion. Once I arrived to the Archdragon Peak, I obtained the Lightning Clutch Ring, and I used Dori's Gnawing to kill the Ancient Wyvern, and I challenged another spoiled son of a god to a fight. I tried different strategies on Yhorm. First, I used Dori's Gnawing, but found out it wasn't as effective as it was with the Nameless King. Then, I tried Wrath of the Gods, and the results were less than stellar. I ended up using Lightning Spear, which, to my surprise, was the most efficient way to take him down. Since it only took 3 successful hits to his face to stagger him, once he was stunned, the Lightning Spears dealt extra additional damage to his head, making this fight not only fun, but very quick. I found out that Wrath of the Gods did massive damage to the Dragon Slayer armor, so naturally this fight was over before you could say
Jesus Christ!
Once in the Grand Archives, I picked up the Divine Pillars of Light Miracle, which I ended up never using, and I had my worst experience ever with the Twin Princes. The 2 incestuous brothers gave me a bigger headache than any type of brain tumor could ever give. First phase was pretty easy considering the damage, and phase 2 however was a completely different story. Trying to hit Lothric with this slow animation speed while Lorien spins around more than your average stripper during pole night was like trying to hit a bullseye after 2 pints of vodka at your cousin's baby shower. After a lot of dying, I figured maybe I would find better luck at attempting Sister Fried again. I did not, in fact, find said luck, but thanks to Dori's Gnawing I was able to reach phase 3, contributing the fact that Ariandel is very weak to bleed. Unfortunately, my spells were still way too slow to keep up during her final form, so I decided to get back to Lorien and Lothric, this time armed with the Sage Ring, and it turns out that it was just enough to push me over the edge and kill the 4th Lord Soul. Lords of Cinders was actually really easy this time around. I just had to cast Dory's Gnawing and run away, then cast again to proc the bleed, rinse and repeat for 2nd phase, and just like that, I have beaten Dark Souls 3 with only miracles for the first time ever. It was time to tackle the Ringed City DLC, and with the help of definitely not patches, and an extensive use of Dory's Gnawing, I was able to easily defeat the Demon Princes. I had not much to pick up in the rest of the DLC, so I immediately went to have my first encounter with Midir, sending the dragon down the cliff. And this allowed me to finally get a good ranged miracle in the form of the lightning arrow. So I followed the dragon straight down under. At this point, I was at the make or break moment with Freed, but fortunately, Lightning Arrow would allow me to reach phase 2 much more consistently, and thanks to the power of Dory's Gnawing, Ariandel and the 2nd phase in general were nothing to be worried about. Each cast was doing almost 1000 damage to the father, meaning the 2nd phase didn't take very long to get through, and for 3rd phase I just went back to using the lightning bow. It was very clutch, but by picking the right moments to attack and with a little luck on my side, I was freed from Sister Freed. Gael was the last obstacle before I could put this run to rest. Sunlight Spear, which I obtained by transposing the Lord's Soul, was by far the better option. Unfortunately, it consumed a lot of mana, meaning that I had to go back and get all the rest of the Undead Bone Shards and Estus Shards I missed on my journey in order to be able to actually beat him. And after reinforcing my flask, it was time to give Santa the summer treatment. With Gael out of the picture, I could finally rest, and just like it was written, I made Jesus sacrifice himself to restore order only for the world to once again fall in the hands of dark and evil. Alright guys, thank you for watching. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel. Leave a like, comment what you think, and I will see you next time.